When you use other people's money and you use leverage and you go into an asset, we're investing in 150 unit buildings, basically. And so if there's a fire and 4 apartments burn, we have the rest of the building that's still there. It's still cash flowing. So yeah, we take a small hit. There's some risk there, but the risk is spread out and you're just able to achieve better, more stable long-term returns in my view and in the view of most experts.
Welcome to the Path to Passive podcast, where we talk about building wealth and empowering lifestyle through commercial real estate investing for tech professionals. I always wish that other tech professionals reaching financial freedom had documented their journey along the way, so I'm doing it for the rest of us. Join us as we explore stories, many failures, and lessons learned along the way. I hope you enjoy and subscribe. Ryan Porter, welcome to the show. I am excited to have you here as we were just getting started and getting to know each other a bit more. I think one of the really cool things about us having this conversation is that, well, we're both at AWS, both in tech, and yes, all opinions are our own for everyone listening and knows the know, but it's cool to have you here to talk about your journey and to also talk about the challenges that you faced along the way that got you to this point of investing in multifamily in Dallas-Fort Worth on your second deal now. Congratulations on that for you and your father. And I think that it's really going to shine a light on maybe some of those questions that people have thought about that, like, how does this happen? How did they get there? And why do they invest in multifamily? So very excited to have you here, Principal Cloud Architect and ProServe, real estate investor. And Ryan, appreciate you, man. For those that are just getting to know you in the space, as you'll be doing many more podcasts and getting a lot more ears and eyeballs, talk to us about where you started, because you've been investing for a good 10 plus years already, right?
Yeah, that's definitely the case. So I think, as many of us, I first started with my first home purchase in San Francisco, California. And that was roughly 14 years ago, where we were just coming out of the GFC, the Great Financial Crisis. And I was sitting in San Francisco, counting my lucky stars, thankful that my tech job, that I still had my existing job in San Francisco, because it was, things had changed very quickly overnight with the economy and just the overall state of affairs in San Francisco. It went from the highs of the dot-com era to just a complete bust environment. And so during that period of time, I was able to save up enough money, and it was my dream to own a piece of San Francisco as a proud San Franciscan. And so I bought a condominium in the Mission District in San Francisco, and it was a building that was built in 1900. And I purchased the upper unit of a duplex, a 2-story Victorian home, and it was really in rough shape, man. It looked like someone turned it from the Victorian age into a 70s cocaine den. It was just red and purple on the walls. They had taken down all of the kind of ornate features that are typical of that period. Nevertheless, I put 10% down. I got it at 600 and change, which is kind of deeply discounted from previous highs. And I knew that I could bring it back. I knew that it was going to be a process. It was going to take time. But I really loved the location because there was gentrification happening in that area. And it was in the southern part of San Francisco, which is closer to the valley, right? And you and I both working in tech, the Google buses and the Facebook buses were kind of driving around the neighborhood, and the area was becoming, as the city was as a whole, more and more infested, if you will, with tech folks. And so it was a really great time to get in. And I had been watching the market and trying to decide kind of when was the right time. And this was roughly 2011, the second part of 2011. And so, yeah, that's that's how the journey began. Immediately when I purchased it, I went into a small rehab phase, just trying to basically make it livable. And so I invested about 50 grand into painting and a number of small projects. I was able to really just stretch those dollars a lot and get a lot done to it on a surface level and make it so that I had a nice, comfortable home at that point in time, albeit with old kitchen, bathroom. And so that's how I started.
Yeah, awesome. So, yeah, like you said, it's with your own place, that condo. Hopefully, there wasn't too much shaggy carpet in this place, or maybe that was around the 80s, but that's quite ambitious going right into a rehab like that. But something sounds like you saw the opportunity, something that was more deeply discounted and went for it, though. Where did you get the idea that this was something that was a good idea to do? And so what I mean is like, yeah, buying your own piece, right? Completely makes sense. In a sense, it's like you said, buying your own piece of San Francisco, or many people, it's just like, well, buying a home is what you do, right? So that makes sense. But did you have an idea of wanting to be a real estate investor? Probably a little bit because you were thinking rehab, but where did you get this real estate investor bug from?
Well, it started with my family. My background is that my dad was a real estate agent on the East Coast in the early part of his life and career. And he was working for my uncle, Dave Chant, Davis R. Chant Realtors in the Pocono Mountains around Milford, Pennsylvania. And my uncle had a sizable real estate company. And basically, what they were doing was single family homes, generally second homes or retirement homes, or folks that were leaving the city, leaving New York City, and wanted kind of a pied a terre in the Poconos and Catskills, about an hour and a half outside of the city. And so when I was a young man, a young boy, actually, I kind of witnessed that. And my father was building spec homes on his own at that point in time, and then selling them through my uncle's company. So I got to kind of witness the single family side of things at a very young age, about 6 to 12 during that time period, I would say. And so I would go to the spec houses and kind of sweep the
Mhm.
basements and help the contractors. And I kind of heard my dad selling the quality of the construction to folks that were looking at the properties. And that's really kind of what sparked my interest at an early age.
Yeah, that's cool. It's always interesting to look back and kind of think about, well, where did that come from? And also amazing how the brain just absorbs the surrounding around you, right? And so that kind of kicked you off from doing other investments too, some across borders. And were there, I think that was what mostly is at Colombia, is that right?
That's right. That's
And did
right.
you do
So
some more in the US as well?
I did, yeah, in San Francisco. So fast forwarding a number of years after that initial purchase of the condominium in San Francisco, before working at AWS, I was working as a consultant for an AWS partner.
Mm.
And I was building virtualization infrastructure, so VDI and server virtualization technology, mainly Citrix and VMware type stuff. And I was heavily remote at that point in time. I was probably 70 to 80% remote. And so I got the travel bug. I had been spending quite a bit of time visiting various parts of Latin America. I had a background in French. I actually minored in French and spent some time in Paris when I was younger in university and college. And I had it on the list of things to do to learn Spanish. And so I was very interested in kind of Latin America and just the idea that the time zones were similar and it was comfortable to kind of work from there, and infrastructure was becoming more and more stable. And so at a given point, I discovered Colombia. That was roughly 10 years ago. And I made a trip, my first trip to Colombia, and I visited Bogota, Cartagena, Santa Marta, and Medellin. And immediately when I got to Medellin, I was very drawn to the people, the culture, the physical beauty of the valley there. Just the idea that you're living in this kind of mountainous rainforest region, and the spring weather, springtime all the time. It's like the land of the eternal spring. And I thought I just came upon a gold mine here. This place is just, it's awesome. It's
Yeah.
one of the best places I've seen in Latin America. So it was in a transitional state coming from the 80s and the Escobar days and all of that kind of very heavy, cumbersome history. But it was just on an upward swing, and I saw that. I immediately recognized that. So, with my fascination with it, I was making trips and spending time there. I purchased a property with the intention of fully gutting it and remodeling it and bringing it up to a higher end property for digital nomads and remote workers, marketing folks. I effectively was my own target market. I knew what I wanted, I knew what I liked, I knew the right locations and so forth. And so I built a property that I could use as a midterm rental, and I could partially live in it if I wanted it to. And so that started off kind of my process in Medellín. And so I continued to replicate that template, if you will. And I did that a number of times, creating really nice 2-bedroom, 2-bath properties in an area which is known as Provenza, which is in the neighborhood of Poblado, which is the nicest, highest end neighborhood within Medellin, Colombia. There's a few now, and there's just a lot of wealth
Nice.
in Medellin. But at the time, that was the safest and best route to do it. So I built and remodeled a number of properties there, held them for periods of times as midterm rentals. And I was doing the same thing with the San Francisco property that I originally bought. And I still hold that property that I bought in 2011. And I live in it sometimes, but it's mostly a midterm rental now.
Cool.
And I've since remodeled that, gone back and done the bathrooms and the kitchen. And so it looks beautiful now. It's a great place. And so what I created on the midterm rental side is basically a turnkey solution that an executive working for Google or Facebook or what have you, a tech person, can just bring their bags and effectively move in and feel at home with high-end internet and amenities and so forth. And so I still maintain a small portfolio of midterm rental units, and I really enjoy having them and running them, and then sometimes leveraging them for myself to go and spend times in places that I really love to be.
I think that's the dream for a lot of people too, right? Which is pretty cool to take it. Most people get this second home, this place. Oh, it would be so great if it were near the beach or something, because every once in a while we can go there and the rest of the time we'll just rent it out. And that has varying levels of success. But in this case, it sounds like, that niche as well of that midterm, not short term or even long term for that matter, has kind of worked out. And I've done something similar with what do I want in investments, or what works for me and how I want to build my asset allocation and my portfolio. So it's really cool that we share that commonality and it's been successful for you. So outstanding. So it's interesting because what we're kind of leading up to and is kind of where you are now, Porter Legacy Group, right? And you're investing in multifamily, being part of some of the teams, partnering with other people as well, who's kind of boots on the ground there, since you said you're based there in San Francisco. But let's walk through, I think, those important problems, important walls. One of the things that I'm sure and those listening will get their ears perked up here, which is oh my God, there's no compression algorithm for experience. Got it. All right. There's no
There you
compression
go.
algorithm. And so the point being is you went from these single family homes to now thinking multifamily. Walk us through your frame of mind. Walk us through some of these challenges where you think this isn't working anymore. I've got to do something different.
Absolutely. And we were kind of talking about this a little bit before we got on. And I think the key word is scale,
Mm.
right? It becomes I have a hobby that I really like doing, and it's making me some money, and it's fun, and it's cool, and I'm learning. I'm gaining a great experience from doing it. It's a great life experience. But how do I change this into something that scales and something that can really help me to build wealth and to build independence and freedom and to just continue my journey, to continue learning. Learn and be curious, right? Is an Amazon leadership principle. And I believe in it and I love it. And it's just about taking the next step in the journey. And so when I was in Medellin, I had a number of mentors. One of them was a gentleman by the name of George Gammon, who is a macroeconomics podcaster and who was helping me in my single family endeavors down there. And we were actually using the same husband and wife team, an architect and a interior designer. And so through a lot of conversations with George, he was aligned with folks like Ken McElroy and other folks. I just started to dive into multifamily. I just got it through kind of osmosis with various people, talking to various folks. I joined one mentorship program that was okay. They had a strategy that I thought really wasn't a great fit for me. They were looking at smaller numbers of units, and really the word scale comes back, and the ability to scale something and acquire high numbers of units just wasn't there with their strategy. And then I happened upon another gentleman, a great guy by the name of Tony Lin, who's based out of the Bay Area. And he was focused in Dallas, Fort Worth. He has a community of tech investors in the Bay Area and a small kind of mentorship program. And he had a desire to uplift his community. He's a really noble guy that was out there to uplift his Asian immigrant community, right? And I'm obviously not Asian, but they were so kind as to have me into the program and have me learn from them. And that's kind of how I got started. I began making trips to DFW at that point in time. And I met some folks at Old Capital. Old Capital is a lending partner in DFW, very reputable shop. Paul People, James Ang, Ashley Cow, a number of folks there that are just really great folks. And I started learning from them and going on the Old Capital bus tour. They have a quarterly bus tour, basically, or 5 times a year. I've been on every one of their bus tours. I was just on one. And I started to really pay attention to the submarkets there in Dallas. And I was looking for partners. I was looking for a relationship that I could start with somebody that had a lot more experience and that had an infrastructure, if you will. And so I just really believe that it's really important to surround your folks with great people that lift you up, or the expression, or a rising sea lifts all ships, or however it goes. And so happened upon these gentlemen from a group called Iron Ridge Capital. They had 20 years in the business. They were originally from Seattle. They had been in Dallas for a number of years. They had been sitting on the sidelines during this whole frothy market phase during 2020, 2021, where valuations were very high. Folks were making purchases on using bridge debt. And so I evaluated them as best I could. And they had no capital calls, no properties taken back. They were very solid at operations, right? They maintain, even in this market right now, which is a very difficult market to maintain occupancy and not have concessions and not have losses and so forth. Their metrics are just very impressive. So I
want
found
to
those
hear.
guys. Mhm.
I actually want to hear. I want to go back to what you were talking about before. Like we went from the single family to
Yes.
that rest of the journey, and it's really cool because I completely agree. One of the things that continues to be reinforced to me as I've been in different groups and masterminds too, some multifamily, some raising capital, others too, of just having people around you that are looking at the same kind of true north as you, right? To have that. But talking about some of the challenges that you faced, you mentioned scale. This is a big one, right? But let's go back and talk about this. And the reason why I'm emphasizing this so much is because I continue to get conversations with people in tech, peers, wherever, which is like, hey, Arita, my last name, hey, Steven, I'm interested in doing real estate. What do you think about going to get a rental or do a flip or something like that? And so let's dive a layer deeper into what that means. Like, why doesn't it scale? Why doesn't it scale? Is it the time aspect? Is it, things with loans? Is it financing? Is it your own money? Walk us through those things.
Yeah, I mean, I think time is an issue, right? I mean, we are busy people. We're working at AWS. We have day jobs, and fixing toilets and or receiving phone calls in the middle of the night is not an ideal scenario for folks like us. We're busy. We have jobs, and so the ability to own a piece of an asset and to have the operations outsourced to an entity that you feel comfortable with, that they have skin in the game, and you're all investing together with a common goal, and the folks that are going in and managing the property and the asset and so forth have skin in the game, and so it's in their best interest to manage it well. I think that just being passive and having an investment in an asset like real estate, which has tremendous tax advantages and is predictable and is relatively secure, especially when you think about who we are and the fact that we have RSUs and we're heavily weighted typically in the stock market,
Mm-hmm.
and there's such fluctuation of that asset, and there's effectively not a great advantage when it comes to taxes. We are high income earners, and so we are being taxed, especially if you live in California like I do, or you live in New York or what have you. Those are considerations. So I managing these midterm rentals, I outsource that to my partner. That's what she does now.
Management.
Yes. And we have SOPs in place, and I have that off my plate. Basically, I don't participate in that. I just make decisions and try to buy and remodel new properties. On the multifamily side, similar situation. I have partners. We are raising capital from friends and family. We are putting that capital into these buildings, and our partners are effectively responsible for the management of those properties. And my LP investors are really hands off, and that's what it is. That's how you scale.
Yeah. And so, I mean, there's other things too. Like you're going to these deals, I'm sure you're putting your own capital into them as well with the multifamily. But at the same
Correct.
time, like I know I had this for me, right? And is I bought a couple single family homes and I'm starting to do the math like, all right, how many do I need? How many rentals do I need to get the cash flow to make it matter, like noticeably matter for me per month? I'm like, I do not have my own personal money to do this. And so I need to be able to partner with other people to think bigger, right? You mentioned learn to be curious. We'll think big. We totally geek out on these, but they're true,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
So it's kind of working with other people using their money because let's face it, I went back to this idea of this triangle, right? It's either other people's experience, other people's money, other people's time, right? And so it's
Yep.
kind of a working and collaborating. It's kind of the same thing. Did you ever have something where it was like, or maybe you can comment on this if it wasn't you in particular. It's like, well, if you keep on doing your own properties and you go out and do it on your own, then you own the entire thing versus, well, damn, if I work with other people, then I own less of it. And why do I want to? I'm smart. I should be able to do this on my own. Did you ever go through something like that?
I did. Two things: leverage and other people's money was very difficult for me to kind of internalize. I still to this day, it's a bit of a cumbersome thing for me, and it's a bit of a weight for me. Having said that, I'm partnered with my father. He has been involved in capital markets and spent years on the real estate on Wall Street, and capital raising and using and leveraging other people's money to make private equity investments along with bringing his own capital in is something that is innate and natural to him. And so I learned in the mentorship programs with the folks that I was working with that capital raising and leveraging other people's money is just part of the game. It's how you scale. It's how you get into deals, and you have the leverage and the ability to spread your risk across not having one single family home whereby if you don't rent it for 2 months or 3 months or something happens and you can't, that you're carrying that debt and you're carrying the expenses and stuff that are associated with it for that period of time. It's all on your back at that point in time. But when you use other people's money and you use leverage and you go into an asset, we're investing in 150 unit buildings basically. Mm-hmm. And so if there's a fire and 4 apartments burn, we have the rest of the building that's still there. It's still cash flowing. So yeah, we take a small hit. There's some risk there, but the risk is spread out. And, you're just able to achieve better, more stable long-term returns in my view and in the view of most experts.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you sharing that, because that is kind of this hump to get over from the competition to collaboration. That's kind of how I think about it. Competition to collaboration bridge. And that idea of, and I got this book behind me, Who Not How, but it's basically that kind of thing of going away from this, I will say, almost an employee mindset to an entrepreneur mindset or business owner, equity owner mindset, because it makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. I mean, this is I don't know. So DFW, 150 units. I don't know the market right there, but these are multiple $1 million commercial assets. And so to be able to own a piece of that, get this cash flow, right, and have that risk spread across those hundreds of units just makes a ton of sense, because what do we know? Everything fails all the time. So if we only have one door, it just is like, well, at some point, something's going to happen. Let's not have it all 100% loss for that period of time, right?
100%. I mean, that's what it is. And one of the things that I learned during that first condominium purchase that I made was the cyclical nature of markets. And so we're in a situation where there's distress in the marketplace right now in DFW and many parts of the United States. And I mentioned this before, the market was frothy during 2020 and 2021. Folks were purchasing assets at high prices on bridge debt. That debt is coming due right now. Mm-hmm. And the proverbial stuff is hitting the fan right now, and assets are getting taken back by banks and lenders and other things. And so the situation is very much similar to what I did after the GFC. And on our second asset that we're purchasing right now, we're buying it from the bank. We are buying it from the bank at basically a 30% discount of what it sold for 5 years ago. And so it's a $10 million asset. Going back to kind of what you said, it's a $10 million asset right now. That's about 147 doors. And we have CapEx to put into it, right? It's got some hair on it. We need to bring it back. The occupancy is low. There's been a lack of, there's deferred maintenance. And so a lack of work has been done on the property over this period of time. So we're bringing it back to its former self, the way that it was some years ago. It's an older asset, and it's kind of similar to that play of the condominium or my midterm rentals, where we are effectively rehabbing buildings. It's just at a much larger scale and with other people's money and larger numbers. And so we're able to kind of share the wealth. We're bringing in friends and family money. We're investing with our friends and partners. They have a similar, we're aligned basically with the way that they do things is effectively the way that we want to do things, is that we're all investing together on these assets. We're pooling our assets, spreading our risk, and hoping for greater returns through kind of semi-deep or deeper value add scenarios.
Yeah, not hoping for it, planning and diving into the data to look at what the forecast and pro forma actually are. But I
Yes,
understand what you're saying.
absolutely. Mhm.
So we only got a couple minutes left. I think the thing is, I've got other podcasts out here. I've got the resources, I'm sure you do too, about like what that model looks like. But people have been paying attention on this space. It's like they have an idea of syndication, bigger asset. You have some people who go and are analyzing this thing, working with the vendors like insurance, the loans, the knowing the market, etc. And then they'll go at the bank, get a loan that takes care of some of it, just like with your house. But instead of all the money coming from just the owners, like you and your partners, they'll also raise some capital to put down the rest of the down payment. That's that syndication model here. And so for the question I wanted to put here is that from your side here is that there's people who have never invested in syndication or a fund, and they might be looking at a price tag, a value, or that at this buy-in, I would say, of 50,000, 100,000 or more,
Mhm.
right? And
Yep.
so what do you have to say about people who are like, Ryan, like this makes a lot of sense, but it's a lot of money?
It is a lot of money. I mean, I think typically our floor is $50,000 to get in. I think we would potentially make exceptions to that. What I would say is think about the benefits of it. Just think about what you're going to learn if you're in tech, which I know, your audience is. Think about the tax advantages. Think about the tax drag that you have right now and how much that large W2 is and how much of that you actually take home. And also all the other things that we mentioned in terms of the asset class, the stability and the safety, tax benefits, and so forth. And so I think it's a great option for an investor to get into, especially when you consider what we are typically in. We are typically very heavily weighted in RSUs in the stock market. And if you talk to different people out there, they'll give you different metrics, but I think 20 to 25% diversification of your total asset, your net worth can go into this asset class or various real estate asset classes. And I think that it's of a benefit for tech folks to move a portion of their money over to this kind of less volatile, more steady cash flowing asset, that will potentially help them with their taxes as well, along with kind of just learning and strengthening their overall ability to invest in different things in general. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. Cash flow, upside, tax benefits, and all of, that on building on that diversification perspective, because I completely agree. And the other thing here too is the opportunity is either kind of for you or it's not. You can choose to do nothing and that has a cost. Or you can choose to do something and continue to get better and better. So yeah, the cost of inaction, we talk about ROI a lot, but COI, cost of inaction, is a real killer. So before we close out, man, I'd love to know if you could pick one or two things. Again, we're talking to those people that are many of our peers, right? Who are listening to this and are like, wow, this can make a lot of sense. What is one or two things that you wish you knew when you had first started in this space with multifamily or just scaling?
Yeah, I think for the audience, I would say it's tax time right now, right? Everybody's filing their taxes. And I would say you might want to talk to a tax planner, right? Not just someone who's filing your taxes, but someone that can help you understand what it is that you can do to lower your tax exposure. Because when you do that, and you save money consistently on the taxes that you pay, that compounds over time. And a small percentage, 5% or what have you, compounding year after year, that savings, that sheltering of some of your money into different asset classes, whether it be oil and gas or multifamily or storage or what have you, that can really make a large difference when you look at a 10-year period, just your overall wealth creation and wealth growth. So I think that every high tech earner, W 2 earner, should be concerned with, especially if they're in New York and California and these high kind of state taxes, they should be looking at that. Then I would go back to what we said previously is just the diversification and
Yeah.
what you mentioned with Ray Dalio and just having assets that are uncorrelated. For example, I have invested in art with a group company called masterworks.io, and I have just a very small amount of money in three pieces of art there, just so I can kind of pay attention to what is this? What does this do? How does this correlate with the stock market, which I'm heavily weighted in? And how does it correlate with my single family and my multifamily assets? And will I put more in that asset class over time? I have crypto and metals and so forth. And so small amounts, but I just kind of watch it and keep an eye on it and understand the correlation and how things work in tandem with the others. And then the other thing I would say is just be concerned when you're looking at any asset class about fundamentals. Just make sure that you're looking at metrics. We are very data driven people. This tends to be easier
Mm-hmm.
for us as engineers and tech workers, but I would say don't overlook it.
Yeah.
Make sure that you understand what the key metrics are for the class that you're looking at and evaluate those key metrics and bounce it off of other human beings and bounce it off of AI, right? And just
Mm-hmm.
see what do various people say about it. So those are the three key things I would say: tax drag, diversification, and just fundamentals.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, and I always think about it this way too. It's when people pay, they pay attention, and just from the perspective of like you got to get in the game, right? So, Ryan, dude, love this conversation. Wish we had so much more time to dive into this stuff, maybe on a part two. Where can people find you? You and your dad, maybe? Where would best place to connect?
Yeah, best place to connect is porterlegacy.com. I will mention that we have a white paper that is up on our website, which is really geared towards high W 2 earners, tech folks, and it explains in a very data driven way why we think that this is a good asset class to look at when you're considering diversification. So check out the white paper, porterlegacy.com.
Cool, man. Appreciate you, Ryan. We'll see you in the next one, guys. Enjoy. Go check out those resources, Ryan stuff. And if you have enjoyed this episode, would love to get a review. You can also reach out to me at LinkedIn. All of these links from Ryan will be in the show notes as well. Take care.
Cheers.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of Path to Passive. We love connecting with our listeners and those on the path to architecting their wealth and improving their lives. Feel free to let us know what topics you'd like to see in the future episodes. Get in touch with us through email or Instagram. See you next week for a new episode.